They called her Senna's girl in the years before anyone knew what that meant. Now they called her nothing at all, which was, she had decided, the closest thing to mercy the galaxy had offered her in 6 months. Dust had not changed. That was the thing about death worlds. They did not change. They simply continued their long, patient work of wearing everything down to the same rust-orange nothing. She had a bunk in Warren 12. She had a name on the work roster that was not her name. She had calluses on her right hand from the salvage tools and a bruise on her left shoulder from the last ceiling plate that had come loose without warning. And she had learned, in the way you learn things on Dust, that the difference between a warning and a catastrophe was usually about 4 seconds. She was not thinking about the Cradle. She had made a practice of not thinking about the Cradle. She had made a practice of not thinking about the binding scars that traced the back of her neck like a map of something she no longer wished to read. She had made a practice, most of all, of not thinking about the moment she had chosen to burn the connection, the vast, cold, inhuman intelligence dissolving back into silence, while the scars on her skin went from blazing to merely warm to simply there, a record of a thing she had done and could not undo. The seal on Dome 7 had been dark for 6 months. Everyone knew it. The Dome wardens had filed the report and received no response, because the office that received such reports was on Ethan Prime, and Ethan Prime had its own problems, and Dust had always had its own problems, and the Progenitor pressure seal had held for 3 centuries without anyone understanding how, and it would probably hold for another 3, and anyway, there was nothing to be done about it, even if it didn't. Serethi was in the junction market when the first tremor moved through the floor. She knew it immediately for what it was. Not an earth tremor. Dust geology was too compressed for that. A structural tremor. The particular frequency of a load-bearing element deciding it had held long enough. The second tremor came 11 seconds later. She was already moving. The warrens between Junction 14 and Dome 7 were narrow and low, the ceiling plates close enough that she had to duck at the junctions. Amber emergency strips lit the corridor in the colour of old bruises. She could hear, under the structural groaning that had become background noise in the 6 months since the network went quiet, a new sound, a slow, rhythmic cracking, like something immense settling its weight onto ground that would not hold it. She knew what a Progenitor pressure seal sounded like when it failed. She had never heard one fail before, but she knew the sound, the way she knew the sound of a dome's atmosphere recycler cycling down, not from experience but from the particular dread of having imagined it so many times that recognition arrived before understanding. The seal was not broken. That was the first thing she understood when she reached the sub-level access shaft and climbed down into the crawl space. The seal's hardware was intact. The Progenitor substrate that formed the dome's foundation ring was intact. The script etched into its surface was intact, cold and dark and perfectly preserved, the way a language is preserved when the last speaker is gone. It had simply stopped receiving the coordination signal it was built to need. The network that had maintained it, that had for 3 centuries sent the continuous low-frequency pulse that told the seal's material to hold its configuration, was gone, had been gone for 6 months. The seal had been running on residual charge, and the residual charge had run out, and now the dome's atmospheric pressure was bearing directly against a ring of alien material that had been designed to work in concert with a system that no longer existed. Because of what she had done. The comm line crackled. Orveth's voice came through in fragments. He was in the maintenance crawl space below the secondary junction, 6 of them. The access shaft behind them had collapsed. They needed a line. They needed 10 minutes. They needed someone to tell them where the bypass was. Serethi looked at the transmitter room ladder, looked at the crawl space tunnel that led to the maintenance bypass, looked at her hands, The bypass would take 8 minutes. The transmitter room would take 4. The dome's outer shell was making a sound she did not have a word for, a long, low exhalation, as if the structure was breathing out for the last time. She climbed the ladder. The transmitter room was exactly as she remembered from the Dome Warden's orientation 6 months ago. The single cracked display, the manual switches, the handwritten log of transmission attempts with their red-marked dates. She did not read the log. She pulled the primary switch and held the broadcast key and spoke into the pickup in the flat, precise cadence that carries information through static. Dome Cluster 7, dust, outer rim, pressure seal failure, structural collapse in progress, 6 personnel trapped, requesting evacuation, capable vessels any vessels at all. She released the key. The display showed signal transmitted. It did not show signal received. She climbed back down the ladder. The bypass tunnel was a maintenance crawl space barely wide enough for her shoulders, running parallel to the collapsed access shaft. She moved through it on her elbows, her salvage cable boots finding purchase on the corroded floor, the ceiling close enough that she could feel the vibration of the dome's failing structure through the back of her skull. The binding scars pulsed once, twice, not responding to anything, just the dead network's last ghost of recognition, a door that opened onto nothing. She found the junction plate. She found the emergency release. She hit it with both palms and the plate dropped, and Orveth's face was on the other side, amber-lit, decompression scarred, absolutely still in the way that faces go still when relief arrives and grief is waiting behind it. 5 of them came through. She counted as they moved. 5. She looked at Orveth and he looked back, and neither of them said anything about the 6th. Davy came through last, the girl's wide dark eyes finding Serethi's face and holding there. Not gratitude, not accusation, just the look of someone who has learned to take inventory of what remains. The sub-level collapsed 40 seconds after the last of them cleared the bypass. The sound it made was not dramatic. It was the sound of a great deal of weight arriving somewhere it had been trying to go for a very long time. They stood in the Warren corridor in the amber light. Orveth's crew was breathing. The dome above them was still breathing, for now, the outer shell's fractures spreading slowly, the structure buying time it had not been designed to buy. The transmitter had not received a response. The evacuation ships did not come. What came instead, 3 hours later, was the relay singer. She found Serethi in the junction market, sitting on a corroded metal blanket, with her back against the wall and her eyes on the floor. And she sat down beside her without asking permission, and her data chip necklaces clicked softly in the silence. The relay singer said, "I heard the broadcast. I know your voice. I have been carrying your name for 6 months, waiting for you to use it again." Serethi said nothing. The relay singer said, "The ash singers of dust will carry this, what you did today, what you chose." Serethi said, "I left one of them down there." The relay singer said, "Yes, and you went back for 5. The song will carry both." Serethi looked at her hands. The chemical burns along her left forearm, the calluses on her right, the faint luminous tracery of the binding scars at her wrists, barely visible now, barely there. She had come to dust to disappear. She had come to dust to be no one. She had come to dust because it was the place she had always been, the rust-orange nothing at the galaxy's edge, the world that asked nothing of her except that she survive. The machines had gone quiet, the seals were failing, the freighters were not coming, and in the morning the ash singers of dust would be carrying her name outward through the dark, not as a hero, not as a sovereign, not as a bound conduit or a bloodline heir or a weapon that had chosen to unmake itself, as a woman who had climbed a ladder and then climbed back down. That was perhaps what was left. That was perhaps enough.